Hi students, welcome to this session on electric current, which is current electricity, session 1. So today, in today's class, we will learn about the definition of electric current, second one, steady current and varying current like alternating current and so on. And also we will learn about the SI unit of current and direction of current, current density, and later we will learn about the electric current in a conductor, what actually happens when the current flows in a conductor like in a copper wire. We will also learn about the famous Ohm's law and its explanation, and we will learn about the resistance and resistivity, and finally we will derive an equation for current density, that is J, current density. J is equal to sigma E, where sigma is conductivity and E is the electric field intensity. So these are the objectives, dear students. We will start with current electricity, definition of electric current. So electric current in general, see that current electricity, it is the branch of physics which deals with the charges in motion. The branch of physics which deals with the charges in motion is called current electricity. Generally, anything that flows, we call it as current. Say we have water current. If water flows, we have got water current. Similarly, if heat energy flows from one point to the other point, we have got thermal current. Similarly, here we have got electric current because the electric charges flow from one point to the other point. So the branch of physics which deals with the charges in motion is called current electricity. So how do you define electric current? Electric current, you just consider a wire of uniform cross section for that matter. So if you consider a wire, if one end of the wire is at a higher potential and the other end is at a lower potential, which means you just imagine a copper wire, and one end of the copper wire you have connected to the positive terminal of the cell, and the other end you have connected to the negative terminal of the cell, which means you have created a potential difference between the two ends of the conductor. Now the charges will flow from one end to the other end. So the rate of flow of electric charges through any cross section of the conductor is called current. So just imagine a copper wire and you have created a potential difference by connecting that to a battery or a cell. Now when you create a potential difference, the charges will flow from higher potential to lower potential from one end to the other end. So the rate of flow of charges across any cross section of the conductor is called electric current. So I is equal to net flow of charge divided by time. That is the reason we say rate of flow of charge. So electric current I is equal to net flow of charge divided by time taken. Notice that electric current I is equal to net flow of charge divided by time taken. So we have got different types of current. So for example, we have got a steady current here. Observe what is a steady current. Notice the graph below, the first graph. Here what is happening, the magnitude of the current is not varying with respect to time. It is a straight line, current versus time graph. This is a current versus time graph. You have to note the graph cursor. Here current versus time. It is a straight line to the time axis, which means the current, the magnitude of current, that is the number of charges flowing per second, is not changing with time. Therefore we call this as a steady current. So a current whose magnitude remains same, does not change with time. And for a steady current, this is the equation we use, I is equal to Q by T, where Q is the net amount of charge flowing in a time T seconds. So I is equal to Q divided by T. Remember, this is the formula for current. This is the formula for current. In the case of steady flow of charges, if the charges are flowing uniformly, constantly, then this is the formula that we use. I is equal to Q divided by T. Remember this, I is equal to Q divided by T. Rate of flow of charge is called current, and that is called steady current. Now if you know what is steady current, now if the magnitude of the charge flowing changes with time, then we call that as a varying current. So a current whose magnitude changes with time, we call it as varying current. Notice here, the charge flow is not constant. See, it is increasing, after some time it is almost constant, and again sharply it rises, the current rises. So here the magnitude of the charge flowing is not constant. Therefore we call this current as varying current. So for varying current, we define current. For varying current, we define current as limit delta t tending to 0, delta q divided by delta t. That means in a small interval of time delta t, what is the charge that flows through any cross section of the conductor? If the charge flowing through a cross section of the conductor is delta q in a time delta t, where delta t tends to 0, that is important. That means in an infinitesimally small interval of time, whatever the charge that flows, that is called instantaneous current, and we define the instantaneous current because current is not uniform in a variable case. Therefore we define a current at a particular instant of time, therefore that is called instantaneous current, and instantaneous current is given by I is equal to limit delta t tending to 0, observe this, dq by delta q by delta t, and that can be written as dq by dt, where dq is the amount of charge flowing in a time dt seconds. And related to this varying current, we have also the alternating current. See, this alternating current, observe this. In this alternating current, not only the magnitude is varying, but also the direction is changing periodically. So if the magnitude and the direction of the current changes periodically with the time, then we call it as alternating current. It is also an example of varying current. So an alternating current is the one whose magnitude and direction changes periodically. That is called alternating current. Okay, dear students, these are the things. So later, next one, SI unit of electric current. Observe this, SI unit of electric current. You know that current, the SI unit of current is ampere. When you write the entire unit, you have to write AMPERE starting from the small letter, all small letters. Suppose if you are representing it symbolically, you have to write capital A, that is the SI unit of current. So how to define SI unit of current? We know generally the equation, observe this, I is equal to what? Q divided by T. I is equal to Q by T. Now let us make Q 1 coulomb. The charge that is flowing in a conductor across any cross section is 1 coulomb, and the charge and the time taken to flow is 1 second. So that means 1 coulomb charge is flowing in a conductor in a time of 1 second. So then we say, then the current is said to be 1 ampere. That means 1 coulomb per second. So if 1 coulomb of charge is flowing in a conductor across any cross section of the conductor in 1 second, then the current flowing is said to be 1 ampere. Very simple. Current flowing is said to be 1 ampere if 1 coulomb of charge flows through any cross section of the conductor in 1 second. 1 coulomb per second is called 1 ampere. 1 coulomb of charge flowing through any cross section of the conductor in 1 second, then the current is said to be 1 ampere. Electric current is a scalar quantity. Even though we say that it flows from one potential to another potential, higher potential to lower potential, we say that the current is a scalar because you will understand that in a microscopic view of electric current. So current is a scalar because it does not follow the rules of vector algebra. Any quantity to be called as a vector, it should have magnitude and direction, and also it should follow the rules of vector algebra. Here current does not follow the rules of vector algebra. Even though it has got some magnitude and direction, it doesn't follow the rules of vector algebra. Say for example, if you have a wire carrying current, and the current is said to be say 1 ampere. Now if you bend the wire, still the current flowing will be 1 ampere only, and the current flows through the wire. Whatever the shape of the wire is, it doesn't matter. So for vectors, those things will not be digested. So therefore it is not a vector, it is just a scalar quantity. So coming to the direction of the current. So dear students, if you want to understand the direction of the current, now we have to understand what happens actually in a conductor. So to understand the direction of the current, let us take this one. See here, when the current, observe here dear students, suppose say we have a conductor here, say this is a conductor. One thing you have to understand very clearly, for the current to flow in a conductor, what is very much required is the potential difference. If there is no potential difference between the two ends of the conductor, the current cannot flow. And say this end is A and this end is B, and we have connected this end to the positive terminal of the battery, denoted by the longer line, and the shorter line indicates the negative terminal of the battery. And see that this is the battery. This battery provides the potential difference. Now you can assume that end A is at a higher potential and end B is at a lower potential, because end A is connected to the positive terminal of the battery and end B is connected to the negative terminal of the battery. If this happens, then you know that the electrons are present here inside the conductor, the free electrons, and these free electrons, because they are negative, they move towards the positive end of the conductor. The electrons will move towards the positive end of the conductor. In this direction they move. So the electrons move towards the positive end of the conductor. So if the electrons are moving from the end B to the end A towards the positive end of the conductor, that is called electron current. We call that as electron current. If the electrons are moving in this direction, we say that the positive charges are moving in the direction, or it is equivalent to the positive charges moving in the opposite direction. Which means that if electrons are moving from B to A, we say that the positive charges, it is equivalent to, analogous to, similar to the positive charges moving from end A to end B. So that is, end A is at a higher potential, end B is at a lower potential. So that we call it as conventional current. And opposite to the conventional current is the real current, that is electron current. So actually the current, real current, is the current constituted by the flow of electrons. And if the electrons move from say right to left, and positive charges, we assume that it moves from left to right. So that is about the direction of the current. So conventionally, remember, if I say current is flowing from A to B, you have to understand that a positive charge is flowing from A to B. A is at a higher potential and B is at a lower potential. In a conductor, especially in a conductor, remember, in a conductor, if the charges are flowing from A to B, so A is at a higher potential, B is at a lower potential. If the current is flowing from A to B, if I say A is at a higher potential, B is at a lower potential, and a positive charge is going from A to B. That is what you have to understand. That is the direction of conventional current. But real current, actual current, is the current constituted by the flow of electrons in a conductor. So that is about the direction of current. So two things. One, it is the flow of positive charge from higher potential to lower potential, higher to lower. So that is one thing. And actually what happens in the electrons, what happens in the metals? Electrons will flow from lower potential to higher potential. So when the electrons move from lower potential to higher potential, we say that positive charges will flow from higher potential to lower potential. That is the current, electric current, direction of electric current. So having learnt about the direction of the electric current, notice that there are few important notes. See that in conductors, electrons are the charge carriers. electrons move from one point to the other point, and electrons, because they are the free charges, they are conduction electrons, free electrons, conduction electrons. These are the charge carriers in the case of conductors. Whereas in the case of conducting liquids, electrolytes, positive ions and negative ions, both charge carriers. There are two types of charge carriers in electrolytes, that is conducting liquids. That is the positive ions and negative ions. Positive ions move from higher potential to lower potential. Negative ions move from lower potential to higher potential. But in metals, in conductors, only electrons will move from lower potential to higher potential, and that is electron current. Opposite to the direction of the electron current is the conventional current, and which is not real. Conventional current is not real. It flows from higher potential to lower potential. Real current is the current due to electrons. And see, in the case of gases, free electrons and positive ions are the charge carriers, current carriers. Whereas in the case of semiconductors, semiconductors, germanium, silicon, all these are semiconductors. In semiconductors, we've got two types of charge carriers: electrons, the negative charge carriers, and holes, the positive charge carriers. So there are two types of charge carriers there. So therefore, understand that electrons are the charge carriers in metals, and in electrolytes, positive and negative ions, and in semiconductors, electrons and holes, and in gases, electrons and positive ions, free electrons and positive ions. And see that electric current is a scalar quantity. Even though current has both magnitude and direction, it is scalar because the value of electric current does not depend on its direction. Because if the wire is bent, same current flows. If the wire is in the form of a square, same current flows. Or you can change that into a circular shape, same current flows. So therefore, it doesn't depend on the direction. So therefore, that is current. Remember that. So next one, current density. This is an important term in current electricity, current density. Check out this. Current density, it is the current per unit area normal to the direction of current. Current per unit area normal to the direction of current is known as current density. So here, current per unit area, that is important. I divided by A, check this, J is equal to current divided by unit area of cross section, and that area of cross section is normal to the direction of current. So the electric current per unit area normal to the direction of current is known as current density. J is equal to I divided by A, where I is the current, A is the area of cross sectional area. Current density is a vector quantity and its direction is same as that of the current, because at that particular cross section current will be flowing and the direction of the current is same as the direction of current density. Current density as the direction of current, and it is always normal to the surface, normal to the area in the direction of current, and unit ampere per meter square. So SI unit of current is ampere per meter square. So if you want to understand if you want to have little more clarity over that, listen. See that if you consider a conductor, this is a conductor, say, this is a conductor, and the current is flowing in this direction, say, the current is flowing in this direction. What I am speaking is about the conventional current. So if the current is flowing in that direction, see that this is the area, So now normal to the area, the current is flowing normal to the area, perpendicular to the area. So therefore J, the current density, you write vector symbol because it is a vector, is equal to I divided by A. Here I is scalar, area is vector. Area is vector and therefore J is vector. Which means area vector, you are supposed to take area vector. What is the direction of the area vector? The direction of the area vector is perpendicular to the surface. Perpendicular to the surface, normal to the surface. If this is the area, normal to the surface. Normal to the surface is the area vector, normal. So J is equal to I divided by A. Observe this, J is equal to I, the current, divided by area. I is equal to Q divided by T. Q is the charge and T is the time. If n number of charges are flowing, then n E is the charge. Q is equal to n into E. You know that E is the electronic charge divided by AT. So J is equal to NE AT, neat. J is equal to neat, not NEET neat, NEAT neat. NE in the numerator, AT in the denominator. So J, the current density. These are the other equations for current density. So current density is a vector quantity and the unit is ampere per meter square. And see that current density you can write in terms of charge, number of charge carriers and so on. Now as I told you earlier, electric current in a conductor. Now this is another important concept, electric current in a conductor. Observe, dear students, you just consider a small cylindrical piece of conductor, small cylindrical piece. In this diagram it is projected, small cylindrical piece like a copper wire, and the diagram is made bigger. Here in this diagram you see that a copper wire which is blown out of projection. In the absence of the external electric field, that means you have not applied any potential difference. There is no potential difference, you have not applied any potential difference. And now imagine what happens inside that conductor where the potential difference is not applied, just you have got a piece of wire with you and the two ends are not connected anyway, just a piece of wire. Now suppose if you consider that, you know that metals, conductors are characterized by the presence of large number of free electrons. There will be large number of free electrons present in the conductor. In fact, around 10 to the power 28 per cubic meter. So many electrons will be there. For example, I have told you this in electrostatics only. If you consider a copper atom, in that copper atom, one copper atom contains 29 electrons, 29 protons. Out of these 29 electrons, 28 electrons are strongly bound to that atom and one electron, the outermost electron, unpaired electron, will be free. So if you consider a copper atom, that copper atom loses the outermost electron. That outermost electron is not in the control of this atom. So it becomes free. That electron becomes free. Outermost electron becomes free. And what remains here is 29 protons and 28 electrons, and therefore we call this as positive ion. This is lattice. This is immobile. This positive ion is immobile, which means it cannot move because of its heavier mass. Whereas this electron is easy to free to move anywhere. So in a conductor, if there are 10 to the power 28 atoms, there will be 10 to the power 28 free electrons. So therefore, conductor is characterized by the presence of large number of free electrons, heavy number of free electrons will be there. So that is one thing. So every atom donates one free electron. And this positive ion, we call it as lattice. Remember, positive ion, lattice, it is immobile. It cannot move because of its mass. Only electrons can move because electrons are lighter in mass. So now what happens? These electrons, free electrons, as I told you, they are in continuous random motion. They keep moving randomly because of thermal energy. There will be at room temperature, there will be thermal energy at room temperature, means at around 300 Kelvin, there will be thermal energy provided. Because of that thermal energy, these electrons keep moving randomly, and the velocity with which they move is around 10 to the power 5, 10 to the power 6 meters per second inside the conductor. They are moving with a very high velocity of the order of 10 to the power 5, 10 to the power 6 meters per second. That is called thermal velocity of electrons, thermal speed or thermal velocity of electrons. So electrons are in continuous random zigzag motion inside the conductor. They are moving randomly. So even though the electrons are moving randomly from one side to the other side, they are in random zigzag motion. What happens? Even though the electrons are moving randomly, there is no net flow of charges from one direction to, from one point to the other point. Why? Because, say, suppose at any given instant of time, if you imagine, if 1000 electrons move from left to right, all the probability will be there that 1000 electrons will move from right to left. You understood the point? See that if you consider a conductor, at any point of time, if 1000 electrons move from left to right, at the same time all the probability will be there that 1000 electrons will move from right to left. So therefore net flow of charges in any given direction will be equal to 0. Say for example, same conductor, if electrons move upwards, 100 electrons move upwards, possibility is there that 100 electrons will move downwards. So net flow of charges across any cross section of the conductor will be equal to 0 in the absence of the external electric field. Keep this in your mind. So therefore the net flow of charges will be equal to 0, and therefore current will be equal to 0. So suppose if you consider a conductor which is not connected to an external field, which is not provided with any potential difference, the charges will be moving. They are always continuous random motion like molecules in a gas. But the flow, the current will not be there. The net flow of charge will not be there. Therefore no current. That is what I wanted to explain you. Now suppose if you apply the electric field, check this. If you apply the electric field here in this diagram, you have applied the electric field. How you have applied the electric field? By connecting that to a battery. One end of the conductor you have connected to the positive terminal of the battery, and the other end you have connected to the negative terminal. So when you have applied the electric field, say for example, you just come back to this point. See here. Here end A we have got, end B we have got. End A is connected to the positive terminal of the battery and end B is connected to the negative terminal of the battery, and the electrons are moving towards the end A because they are negative charges. Positive charges are immobile, they cannot move because of their heavier mass, they cannot move. Now the electrons will move in this direction, and that is electron current. You know that if the electrons move in this direction, in that opposite direction or direction opposite to that, the positive charges, we assume that positive charges will move, which actually doesn't in the case of conductors I am saying. So this is the current. Now actually what happens, these electrons, when the electric field is applied here, the electric field is applied in this direction. Electric field, this is external electric field applied with the help of this battery. When the electric field is applied, now notice that this particular electron, being a negative charge, will experience the force, electric force, in the direction opposite to the applied electric field. It experiences a force. Remember, a positive charge will experience the force in the direction of the field, a negative charge will experience the force in the direction opposite to the electric field, and therefore the electron will experience the force in the direction opposite to the electric field. Because it experiences the force, it is accelerated. It is accelerated towards the end A, towards the positive end, in the direction opposite to the electric field. It is accelerated. So because of acceleration, what will happen? The electron now will have the tendency to move towards the positive end of the conductor. So far means when the electric field is not applied, it has no tendency to move in any direction. It was moving as and when or however it wants. Now it has got some tendency to move towards the positive end of the conductor. While moving towards the positive end of the conductor, it now encounters other ions, positive ions. I told you, lattice. And it also encounters other electrons. It collides. There is a collision happening. So what happens? See what happens actually if you consider a conductor and consider one electron actually. Say this is the positive end and this is the negative end A and end B, and that is obtained because of the battery. So we have connected that to a battery, and therefore positive terminal, negative terminal, and just consider one electron here, one electron. If you consider that electron here, now the electron starts moving towards the positive end of the conductor. When it starts moving towards the positive end of the conductor, say it might collide with a positive ion. It collides, and after collision, say it comes back, but it will have the tendency to move towards the positive end. So therefore it starts moving in this direction. Now again it collides with another ion and it changes the direction. It collides, it collides, it collides. So therefore the electron which was here earlier, to move to this point from, say for example, from P to Q, if it has to move from P to Q, the points P to Q, it would have suffered 1000 collisions. Just to move from P to Q, it would have suffered 1000 collisions. So therefore what will happen? The electron slowly drift towards the positive end of the conductor, but the tendency to move towards the positive end of the conductor will remain same, because electric field is applied. Because of the applied electric field, the tendency will be always there, and therefore even though the electron is suffering the collisions, even though there is an hindrance, even though there is an obstacle, the electron will have that tendency, will have that motivation to move towards the positive end of the conductor, and it moves from P to Q, which means just to move 1 millimeter, it might take 1 second. Suppose if the collisions were not there, then it would have traveled around 10 lakh meters in 1 second, because thermal velocity, you remember, thermal velocity of electrons is 10 to the power 5, 10 to the power 6 meters per second. In 1 second it would have traveled a distance equal to 10 to the power 5 or 10 to the power 6 thermal velocity. So why the electrons are not moving with that thermal velocity? Because they are suffering collisions. Because of collisions, the path, the motion of electrons is hindered, is opposed. So what happens now? Just to move 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters, it would suffer many collisions, thousands of collisions it should suffer. So because of these collisions, what happens? The hindrance is there. There is an opposition to the flow of charges. Even then, the electrons will slowly drift from one point to the other point, from one point to the other point, and therefore they move from one end of the conductor to the other end of the conductor, and the velocity with which they drift is around millimeters per second. Millimeters per second. So which means it can move only about 1 millimeter in 1 second, not more than that, in a conductor I am telling. So therefore slowly they drift towards the positive end of the conductor, and that velocity we call it as drift velocity. So the electrons, free electrons, charge carriers in a conductor, under the application of the external electric field, slowly drift towards the positive end of the conductor. Why they slowly drift? Because of collisions. Because of collisions, they slowly drift towards the positive end of the conductor, and that velocity with which the electrons move towards that smooth, slow velocity with which the electrons move towards the positive end of the conductor is called drift velocity, which is of the order of millimeters per second. Millimeters per second. This is what the current is actually. So therefore, if a charge has to move from, say, one end of the wire to the other end, it will take so many minutes. if it is 1 meter, say if you just consider a wire of length 1 meter, from one end to the other end, the charge takes so many minutes to cross over, because it has to suffer collisions, and therefore the charge takes lot of time to move from one end to the other end because of collisions only. So, and that collisions is responsible for the resistance. Remember, resistance. When the charge flow in a wire, there is a resistance, opposition to the flow of charges, and that opposition arises due to these collisions only. Without collisions, there is no opposition, and that is an important factor. And because of that resistance only, the wire gets heated up. We get that heating effect of electric current. Many other applications are there, in fact, due to this heating effect of electric current. So, dear students, you might have understood what is electric current now, and how the current flows, electric current in a conductor. The electric current in a conductor, that is an important aspect, remember that. Now, coming to this Ohm's law. You might have studied Ohm's law in your 9th standard or 10th standard. Ohm's law. Ohm's law, you know that the current flowing in a conductor, that is I. The current flowing in a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference across the ends of the conductor, provided the temperature and other physical conditions remain constant. I repeat, suppose if you consider a conductor, that is wire, say this is a conductor, okay. Now the current flowing in a conductor is directly proportional to what? It is directly proportional to the potential difference applied across the ends of the conductor. Potential difference. If you apply higher potential difference, more current will flow. If you apply the potential difference less current will flow. So it is directly proportional to the potential difference, and there are few things to be constants. One, the temperature of this conductor should be constant, it should not vary. Secondly, other physical conditions like length of the conductor, cross sectional area, all these things should not vary. So if temperature, length, cross sectional area, those we call it as physical conditions. If physical conditions and temperature remains constant, then I is proportional to V. Very simple. I, current, is proportional to V. V is the potential difference. I is proportional to V. That's it. So remember that I is proportional to V. Current in a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference across the ends of the conductor, provided the temperature and other physical conditions remain constant. Now check this one. I is proportional to V. We can also write V is proportional to I. For the sake of convenience, we write that. So if V is proportional to I, as usual, when you remove this proportionality sign, you will get a constant, and that R is a constant. Now V is equal to R into I, or I into R. So where R, the constant of proportionality, R is the constant of proportionality, and that is called electrical resistance of a conductor. That is the electrical resistance. And as I told you, electrical resistance of a conductor is the opposition offered by the conductor to the flow of charges. Why the opposition occurs? Again, because of collisions. Remember, the collisions that the electrons has to suffer with the positive ions and the other neighboring electrons, and because of that collisions, the path or the motion of the electrons is obstructed, opposed. So this opposition to the flow of charges due to collisions is called resistance. And according to Ohm's law, the potential difference applied V is equal to I into R. Remember, V is equal to I into R. V is the potential difference applied across the ends of the conductor, and I is the current flowing, R is the resistance of the conductor. R is a constant. Remember, R is a constant. For a given conductor, it is constant. R is a constant if temperature is constant. R is constant if length is constant. R is constant if cross-sectional area is constant. That is the reason Ohm's law. What do we say? Ohm's law, when temperature and other physical conditions are constants. That means R is a constant only when temperature is constant and other physical conditions like length and area, cross-sectional area are constant. So therefore, R is called resistance, that is the proportionality constant. The name given to that proportionality constant is resistance of a conductor. So it is the opposition offered by the conductor to the flow of charges, remember statement. So R is equal to V by I, look at this equation, R is equal to V by I. So therefore, how do you define it? V divided by I, V, potential difference divided by current. So therefore, it is defined as the ratio of the potential difference across the ends of the conductor to the current flowing through it. R is equal to V divided by I. So this R is equal to V by I, and the unit, see V, very simple dear students, you have to understand this. V is volt, I is current. Volt divided by current, current is ampere, volt per ampere, 1 volt per ampere is called 1 ohm, OHM, ohm. See the symbol here, look at the cursor, symbol ohm. Ohm is the SI unit of current. So SI unit of electrical resistance. SI unit of electrical resistance is ohm, OHM, ohm. Symbol, this is ohm, not HOME, ohm. Okay, so define ohm. Look at this equation. If you want to define ohm, say there is a difference between, suppose if the question is asked, mention the SI unit of current, just write ohm. If the question is asked, define ohm, then you will have to define what is 1 ohm. So if you want to define ohm, make the potential difference 1 volt and the current 1 ampere. So if the current, if the potential difference applied is 1 volt and the current flowing in a conductor is 1 ampere, then the resistance of the conductor is said to be 1 ohm. Remember, very simple. You have a wire, conductor, apply the potential difference which is equal to 1 volt. Current flowing is say 1 ampere. So 1 volt per ampere, that itself is 1 ohm. 1 volt per ampere is 1 ohm. So if the potential difference applied across the ends of the conductor is 1 volt and the current flowing in a conductor is 1 ampere, then the resistance of that conductor is said to be 1 ohm. That's it dear students, that is the unit of resistance, remember that. Then another important point is about the resistivity, electrical resistivity, which is also known as specific resistance. Electrical resistivity or specific resistance. So see that there is one definition, R is equal to V divided by I. Now what are the other factors on which the resistance depends? I told you resistance is constant if the temperature is constant, resistance is constant if the length is constant, resistance is constant if the area is constant. If all these things changes, what happens? Resistance will change, which means resistance depends on temperature, it depends on length, it depends on area of cross section. So therefore, observe this, the electrical resistance of a conductor is directly proportional to its length. Longer the length, higher is the resistance. Okay, and similarly it is inversely proportional to the cross sectional area, area of cross section or cross sectional area. So higher the area, larger the area of cross section, then the resistance will be less. If you want to understand that clearly, look at this, definitely you will understand better. You will understand better. Now just observe this to understand about the resistivity. See, as I told you, remember, resistivity is directly proportional to what? Resistivity is directly proportional to the length of the wire and inversely proportional to the cross sectional area. Then you might be wondering, sir, you told that it depends on temperature. Yes, it also depends on temperature. I'll tell you how it depends on temperature. So now just check this one, resistance of a conductor. Okay, look at this students. Suppose I told you, point number 1, resistance R is directly proportional to length L of the wire. This is easily understood. Why? As I told you, resistance is the opposition offered by the conductor. Longer the length, higher will be the resistance, because it has to flow through many, it has to experience many collisions, longer the length. So therefore resistance obviously will be more. If you increase the length, resistance will be more. R is proportional to the length of the wire. Secondly, the resistance, that is R, we say that it is inversely proportional to the area of cross section. Area is different, cross sectional area is different. Remember, area of cross section, that is 1 divided by A. If I write A as area, that is cross sectional area. You might be wondering how it is inversely proportional to the cross sectional area. I'll just give you one example. Just consider this conductor A. Now consider one more conductor here. Consider one more conductor here. Now we've got two conductors here, right? Obviously you know that A and B, two metals, two conductors. Obviously the area, cross sectional area of A is small and the cross sectional area of B is more. Suppose if I say here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 electrons. 10 electrons here to move from the end P to the end Q. If 10 electrons has to move from end P to the end Q, while moving, these 10 electrons while moving, because the passage is less, they have to encounter many collisions, because you just imagine that as a road actually. Now these 10 electrons has to move from P to Q, and obviously because the area is less, it has to suffer collisions. Say for example, if on this this is a road, say for example, and if there are 2 or 3 bikes traveling, or say suppose if 10 bikes has to travel here, then it is difficult. One bike may collide with the other bike because of lesser area. Whereas if I give the same task here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What it means here, every electron will have got its own path. Just to understand. Now it can move easily. So the resistance will be less. Imagine 10 bikes moving from end P to end Q. Every bike will have its own lane. No chance of collision. The chance of collision will be less, minimized. Whereas here the chance of collision will be more. Therefore, with the increase in the cross sectional area, the resistance will decrease. So therefore, look at this point, R is directly proportional to the length L and it is inversely proportional to the cross sectional area. Now if we write combinedly, if we write R, the resistance is directly proportional to the length and inversely proportional to the cross sectional area, and R is equal to, now remove the proportionality sign, you will get some constant rho L divided by area. So again we come across another constant now, another proportionality constant. This another proportionality constant what we have got is called the resistivity. This is called resistivity. Remember, resistivity. That is also known as specific resistance. This specific resistance depends on the temperature and the nature of the material of the conductor. So it depends on two factors. This resistivity or specific resistance depends on nature of the material of the conductor, and it also depends on temperature. Now therefore we say that resistance, remember R, the resistance depends on resistivity, it depends on length, it also depends on area. So therefore, totally resistance depends on 4 factors. What are the 4 factors? 1, it depends on the nature of the material of the conductor, whether it is copper, whether it is aluminum, whether it is zinc, like that. It depends on the nature of the material of the conductor. Secondly, it depends on the temperature of the conductor. And thirdly, it depends on the length of the conductor. Fourth, it depends on the cross-sectional area. Whereas resistivity depends only on the nature of the material of the conductor and temperature, which means resistivity does not depend on length. Resistivity does not depend on area. It doesn't depend on the dimensions of the conductor. That means length and area. What I mean here is this. Suppose if you get a piece of copper wire and a longer piece of copper wire, both will have the same resistivities. I mean, resistivity does not depend on the length. A copper means finish. Whether a small piece of copper or a big piece of copper, it doesn't matter. It depends only on the nature of the material and also temperature. It depends on the temperature. It doesn't depend on the length and cross-sectional area, resistivity. Now look at the equation for resistivity. Resistivity rho is equal to Ra divided by L. What is the unit of R? Ohm. What is the unit of area? Meter square. What is the unit of length? Meter. So can I cancel 1 meter here? What remains is ohm meter. So ohm meter is the SI unit of resistivity, specific resistance, ohm meter. Ohm meter is the SI unit of resistivity. Remember that? So ohm meter. So this is about the resistivity, dear students. I have told you very clearly. Resistance depends on 4 factors. Resistivity depends on 2 factors. Resistivity is independent of dimensions of the conductor. Resistance depends on the dimensions of the conductor, and these are the important things. Okay, now we'll come back and see that the reciprocal of resistivity is called conductivity. Reciprocal of resistivity is called conductivity. It is denoted by the letter sigma. You can see in the note 2 here, sigma. So that is the thing. And how do you define resistivity? To define resistivity, again go back to the same equation. See, look at this equation. Rho is equal to Ra divided by L. Rho is equal to Ra divided by L. This equation. If you look at this equation, suppose if area is equal to 1 meter square, if area is equal to 1 meter square and length L is equal to 1 meter, length L is equal to 1 meter. Now what happens? Area is 1 meter square, length is equal to 1 meter, therefore rho is equal to R, because area is 1 meter square and length is 1. So rho is equal to R. How do you understand this? That means how do you define resistivity? Resistivity is numerically equal to resistance of the conductor of unit length and unit cross sectional area. That's it. Why unit length? L is 1. Why unit area cross section? A is 1. Therefore resistivity is the resistance of the conductor of unit length and unit cross sectional area. That is how you define resistivity. Resistivity is defined as the resistance of the conductor of 1 meter length and unit cross sectional area, 1 meter square cross sectional area. What is the SI unit of resistivity? Ohm meter. Ohm meter. What is the SI unit of resistance? Ohm. Okay. Hope it is clear. And reciprocal, see that rho is equal to 1 divided by sigma, or sigma is equal to 1 divided by rho. So this one, sigma is equal to 1 divided by, this sigma is called electrical conductivity. Similarly, resistance, if you consider the resistance, R resistance, and R is equal to 1 divided by G, where G is conductance and R is resistance. So reciprocal of resistance is conductance, which means G is equal to 1 divided by R. So G means conductance, reciprocal of resistance, conductivity sigma, reciprocal of resistivity. So these are the important things that you have to keep in your mind always. Now getting back, Ohm's law can be written as V is equal to IR. I as it is, check this, V is equal to IR. I as it is I have written, and in the place of R, rho L by A is written, rho L by A. Therefore V is equal to I rho L divided by A, I rho L divided by A. So that is Ohm's law, the other way of writing Ohm's law. That's it. Don't worry about it. V is equal to IR, you remember. V is equal to IR, R is equal to V by I is equal to V by R. Three different forms of Ohm's law. That's it. Okay. So these are the things that you have to remember, dear students. And another very important thing, today's objective, last objective, you should feel happy. That is to arrive at the relation, between J is equal to sigma E. J is equal to sigma E. What is J is equal to sigma E? J is current density, remember, current per unit area. Sigma is reciprocal of resistivity called conductivity. E is electric field intensity. E is electric field intensity. First look at this derivation. It is very simple. Now R is equal to rho L divided by A. You know this, R is equal to rho L divided by A. Okay. So if R is equal to rho L divided by A, then look at this, V is the potential difference across the conductor and I is the current. V is equal to IR. That is R. You know, R is equal to rho L by A, V is equal to IR. That is according to Ohm's law. Or V is equal to I rho L divided by A. Just now I told V is equal to I rho L divided by A. Now if you modify that equation 1, V by L is equal to I rho divided by A. V by L is equal to I rho divided by A. V by L, V divided by L, V is the potential difference, L is the distance, that is potential gradient. Potential gradient is nothing but electric field intensity, second chapter. Relation between electric field intensity and potential. Electric field intensity is also known as potential gradient. E is equal to minus dV by dx. Remember, E is equal to minus dV by dx. Here dV is V, dx is L. So V divided by L is potential gradient. Potential gradient is nothing but electric field intensity. Keep this in your mind. Think about this. Electric field intensity is equal to V by L. So V by L is equal to I rho divided by A. So V by L is nothing but E. I by A is nothing but J. I is what? I is nothing but current. A is area. I by A is J, current density. So therefore what happens? E is equal to J rho. E is equal to J rho, or in the place of rho you can write 1 by sigma. So E is equal to J by sigma. That means J is equal to sigma E. J is equal to sigma E. That's it. Very simple. So I'll derive that once and I'll show it to you. So in case of any problems you can now, because you are used for this one. So listen students, as you all know, you just remember R is equal to rho L divided by A. That is one thing. And see that according to Ohm's law, V is equal to what? I R. Substitute for R. So V is equal to I, R is rho L divided by A. Now just take L to the left hand side. So V divided by L is equal to what? V by L is equal to I rho divided by A. I into rho divided by A. What is I by A, you tell? What is I by A? J. What is V by L? E. So therefore you can now write E is equal to I by A is J into rho. Can you write rho is equal to 1 divided by sigma? If you write rho is equal to 1 by sigma, then you will get E is equal to what? J. E is equal to J divided by sigma. Or what is J now? J is equal to sigma into E. J is current density. E is electric field intensity. Both are vectors. Sigma is not a vector. J is equal to sigma E, current density. So dear students, hope we have learnt all these 10 things, and I hope I know that you people will be exhausted by this by now. So we will meet in the next session. In the next session we will learn some more important things on